Blender cloth simulations can be kind of overwhelming, especially if you're a beginner. None of the settings make any sense, and today in the complete guide to cloth simulations in Blender, we're going to go through all of those settings and all of those steps so that you have a complete understanding of how to use cloth simulations in Blender by the end of this video. I'm also going to show you several real-world use cases of cloth sim so that you can learn not just the settings, but also how to apply them to your projects. And if you stick around to the end of this video, I'll show you some of my favorite cloth sim tutorials as well to follow up with. So with that being said, let's dive in and get started. So first up, let's talk about how to even apply a cloth sim to an object. So here I have a plane I want to turn into cloth. You can see that I've added some topology. We'll talk more about that later. And I want to apply a cloth sim. So all I do is I grab that object and come to the physics tab and click cloth. And it's going to give me some default settings, and you'll also notice that the plane disappeared. That's because I'm not on the first frame. And whenever working with simulations, Blender always simulates from the first frame onwards. So anytime you adjust a setting, it might disappear or break, and to reset it, you have to go back to the first frame and recache the animation. So now if I press play, it'll begin caching that animation, and you'll see there that it just falls through nothingness. And that's because by default, nothing has collisions. So we're going to grab the sphere here, we're going to come back to the physics tab and turn on collision. Now when we hit play, you'll see that we're getting a pretty basic simulation, but we're going to look at how we can tweak this and make it better. Now, one thing I'd like to point out that most people don't realize is that Blender Cloth actually comes with a bunch of presets. For some people, that might be all you need. If you come up here, you can click here and choose different presets. By default, it's set to cotton, but for example, if I set it to rubber and replay, you'll see that this cloth becomes much stretchier and also hangs a little heavier. Now we're going to go through all of these settings here, and you're going to see a lot of settings like tension, compression, shear, bending that might make no sense. And I think that's because you have to have an understanding of how Blender's calculating the cloth sim. So let's take a look at that before we go through these settings. Now, luckily, Blender's actually given us a nice illustration in the manual here to show us how cloth sims are calculated. So here you see an object with 4 faces, and you see all these arrows here. Well, these arrows are basically like springs. So when they calculate the cloth sim, it's actually measuring kind of the spring from one vertex to another, and how strong that spring is. So when we change those settings, we're essentially strengthening or weakening these springs. So here on the blue arrows are the tension. So when we adjust our tension settings, what we're essentially doing is either stiffening up and tightening the edges of the cloth or loosening them. The other one to pay attention to is compression, which is how easily these vertex from one another will stretch apart or hold their form together. And then the last one you need to focus on is the shear, which is kind of the diagonal force across of these. So you can imagine that if you had really low shear and compression values, you'd get a very lightweight cloth. Whereas if you had high values across all these things, you'd get a very kind of stiff cloth. If you want to save time on effects simulations, check out my dynamic visual effects pack. It comes pre-made with a bunch of preset effects such as lasers, fire, lightning, explosions, shields, and more. And all you have to do is drag and drop them into your scene. They're all completely customizable, and it's intended to help save you time on these type of effects. And best of all, you can get 25% off now. Just use the coupon code CLOTHSIM. I'll link in the description below. Now, before we dive into the settings, take a look at your topology. So you can see in these pre-rendered examples here how much the topology affects the cloth sim. All these cloth sims have the same exact setting. The only difference is how many faces they have. And I think this is where a lot of people start to fall away, is because they think that they have to have super high poly objects. And when they do that, it begins slowing down their computer. So let me show you a trick if you're on a lower end computer. So here in this example, I have a very low poly plane, just 9 faces there. And obviously this isn't enough information to work with. Now we could come on here and begin subdividing this. However, that's really going to add a ton of geometry to our scene and make things denser and just move slower. So if you're on a lower end computer, what I actually recommend doing is adding a subdivision surface modifier over here. If you don't want it to round out your edges, just come up here and turn it to simple. I'm also going to turn off optimal display so we can see how much geometry it's adding. Now, in order for the cloth sim to utilize this data, you actually need to put it up above the cloth sim. Now we're going to add a couple levels here. I'm just going to add 3 or 4 levels there. And this will work faster than if you just have dense geometry. And also it can be turned on and off so you can move around your scene to move faster. Let's go ahead, hit play here. And we can see here that we already have a much better cloth sim, but we can go ahead and even improve this a bit more. So when we put the subdivision data up here, the cloth sim will use all of that data. And the more data we put up here, it's going to be slower and slower. However, we can add a second subdivision surface, put that on top of everything, and this is not being calculated by the cloth modifier, meaning that it won't take as long to process. But you can see it smoothed out our geometry quite a bit. So this is a simple trick you can do to get a pretty fast cloth sim, even if you're on a lower end machine, is this modifier stack right here. Now, one more trick you can do is that cloth is never completely flat, as we have here with just one plane. And by adding a solidify modifier, you can add some thickness to your material without any extra calculation. But there's a couple settings you need to be aware of. By default, when you add the modifier here, what it is going to do is be set to -1. Well, the problem is that your simulation's going by the base geometry up here. So what you actually want to do is set this to +1 so that you collide and this thickness doesn't clip through your object. The other thing is the even thickness. If I leave even thickness on, you'll see that it tries to maintain even thickness and it'll create all these jagged spikes. But if I turn it off, you can see that that's no longer an issue. So this is another great way to add some realism without any extra performance costs. Let's actually start diving into all the settings so we can really create some cool things. First up is quality steps. This determines the quality of your simulation. I think the default value is 5, but it can go all the way up to 64. The thing is, this is what will drastically increase your render time. So you want this to be as low as possible, and I only recommend increasing it if you're seeing glitches in your animation. It can sometimes fix those. Otherwise, try and leave it at the default value. Next up is the speed multiplier, which quite literally just changes the speed of the animation to go faster or slower. And then after that, we have the vertex mass, which changes the weight of each vertex. So by setting this to a higher number, you will create a very heavy cloth, and a lighter number will create a very light cloth. Now, these next two settings are pretty much going to leave at default all times. The bending model is angular or linear. Linear is the old way of doing things and angular is better, so you're not likely going to want to switch that. Air viscosity here is just the thickness of the air, and the only reason you would change that if you were trying to create something super abstract. But let's dive into the settings you're actually going to be changing quite often. So first up is stiffness, which is the cloth's resistance to stretching and squashing along mesh edges. It's important to know that tension prevents the cloth from stretching too far apart, and compression prevents it from collapsing in on itself. The higher the value you put, the stiffer it will get. The lower the value you put, the stretchier it will get. If you go too low or too high, it will create glitches because it'll fall outside of the realm of realism. So I recommend incrementally moving it up in 5 to 10 units at a time. Now there's a new category here we haven't talked about called bending. And bending controls how easily the cloth can fold or curl across a surface. Next up, we have damping, which reduces oscillation, which is kind of that jittery noise you get from cloth sims. If you've ever seen a low quality cloth sim and seen just the cloth bouncing around on the character, damping can help reduce that. And we have the same categories we have in stiffness with tension, compression, shear, and bending. And what that means is that, for example, if the edges of your cloth are bouncing around, you could increase the damping on the tension, and that would help reduce that edge jitter. So next up is internal springs. And when I turn this on, what it's going to do is basically try and create a bunch of kind of springs inside of this. And the cool thing here is that if I hit play here, you can see you use it to create soft body type animations, almost like a jiggly belly. So all you have to do to activate it is click on the checkbox here. And let's take a look at the settings. First up is the max spring length. You can set this to 0 and it'll do its best to calculate automatically, which is what I recommend. But this is how apart two vertices can be before they stop being connected by internal springs. So for example, if I wanted to make sure the entire object the object is 2 meters, so I could set it to 2 meters and guarantee that it would affect the entire object. If I only wanted it to affect a small portion of the object, I could do something like 0.05. And then below that, we have the creation diversion. This has to deal with the angles, and for the most part, you can always leave this at default. But again, we have tension and compression showing up, but this time we also have max tension and compression, so you can set a max limit so that when you are doing the simulation and it's bouncing around, it doesn't go over a certain value. But the important thing to look at here is the vertex group. So if I tab into the weight paint mode here, you can see that I have painted the portion that I want to be affected by the spring, called springs there, in my vertex group. And then now that is the only portion that is affected by the simulation. So like I said, this is really great for adding jiggly parts to your characters. So next up is the pressure setting. And what this allows us to do is generate pressure from inside the object. So you can see here on one side, I have just the basic cloth sim of these objects, and they just collapse as if they are just a cloth with nothing inside. And on the right side, I've put pressure, meaning that there's almost air pressure inside of it, like it's a ball filled with air, and how they kind of bounce around off each other. Now, pressure is great because you can use it to take objects like this and kind of fill it up and create a pillow or a balloon. To enable pressure, you just need to turn on the check mark. And by default, it will be set to 0 and try to calculate the volume and base the pressure off of that. Or you can set in a manual value. I usually like using something like 50. I also like to point out that you can keyframe this value. Now, if you're not happy with the results, you can turn on the custom volume and try and create a target volume, which is going to be about the volume unit you have here. So seeing that my dimensions are around 2, I can keep this between 3 to 5 and expect a decent result. And you'll see that it'll give me something pretty similar to what I had before. Now, you might notice in this example that it's popping up and it's almost like it has these seams and folds around the edge. And that's because I've actually weight painted here on the basic object some of these edges to reduce where the pressure is. So by clamping these down, I can keep these into their shape and I get the illusion of seams. Now, they have a vertex group here where you can increase or reduce the pressure. I actually recommend using the shape tab, which we'll cover in a moment. But one other thing I want to talk about with pressure is that you can actually use it to simulate fluid or to also shrink wrap. So the pressure number here can actually be put to negative. But I also want to point out before we move on that you can actually set negative values in the pressure and create all of these like shrink wrap effects. So you can see here that I have actually taken a cube and just put a negative pressure and shrink wrapped it to this banana. And I think it's important to know that when you do this, you don't need a high value. I just had a pressure set to -5, and you can see how it starts to crumble into its stuff pretty quickly. So next up, we have pressure scale and fluid density. Pressure scale is just going to affect all the other values and adjust the scale. And I found the only time I really need to use that is when I'm working with fluid. So by default, this is set to 0. And let's take a look at our object here. We can see that it collapses into itself. However, I want to make this feel like it is full of water. So by default, it is set to 0. And the setting of 1 will give it the fluid density of water. So now if I hit play again here, we'll see that it starts to kind of collapse into itself and freak out. And we can adjust the pressure scale here. And I've noticed you have to go pretty extreme with the values here. So I just began playing with the values. In this case, I found that 300 worked. Now if I hit play here, you can see that it looks like our object here is full of water. And this is starting to look like something that might get me kicked off YouTube, so we're going to move on to the next section. Now, up until this point, we've been working with pretty low-res geometry, but you can see here that the minute I go up to something like 10,000 faces, how things begin to lag in the viewport. If you're on a lower-end machine, they might even start lagging far before that. And that's where caching comes in. So if we come over here to the cloth sim, we can actually just pre-render our simulation, and then it will store it on the disk, so that every time we move through the scene, it's no longer doing all those calculations in real time. So let's actually break down what these bake settings do. So first of all, I want to talk about the simulation start here. And one thing I want to point out is that you can actually put this before your timeline starts. So you can see that when I come back here, what's happening is the plane is way up here. But by baking the simulation 60 frames before, I can actually start the simulation when it's already down here. This is great for when you're doing things like character animations and you have clothes on them and you don't want the first 30 frames of your scene to be the clothes kind of settling into place. Now the end frame here is self-explanatory. Below that, it'll tell you how many frames you are baking and how much memory it will take. Now by default, you can just click the bake button here and it will bake it to the project. That means when you close the project and reopen it, your bake might not be there. If you want to save that bake, you can click on disk cache here. And by clicking that, it will save it into the file next to the project, and then it'll be there every time you open it. So I recommend this if you have complex bakes in your scene. You can also choose a compression method here if the files are getting too big. Now, calculate to frame will actually just calculate to the frame that you have selected in the timeline. So since I click calculate to frame, it's going to calculate up to frame 70, which is where I started. Now bake will just bake whatever object you have selected. Bake all dynamics will bake every dynamic object visible in the viewport. So make sure you keep them in collections and turn them on and off and bake only the ones that you want. Then of course down here, you have the delete all bakes. The majority of these other things you don't need. Now one thing I want to point out is that anytime you make changes to your settings up here, you're going to have to rebake it to see those effects. Now, next up is the shape group, and this is probably the favorite group to play with because in this group, we have the pin group setting. If you remembered before, I showed you that pillow and the seams. That's because I set these seams within this pin group. And here you can see in the example of this plane, I have pinned this vertex group up here. And when I hit play here, you can see how all those are holding their position while the rest falls, kind of looking like a flag. But using pinning, you can do really cool things. For example, I pinned the top of this scarf and then parented the scarf to a bone on my character here. And now you can see that I have this awesome little scarf kind of blowing in the wind behind him. So the next cool thing in this section is that we also have sewing and shrinking factor, which is great for adding clothes to our characters. So I'm just going to go ahead here and use the default cube as an example. Now making clothes is actually quite simple. All you need to do is take a plane, cut it out into the shape of clothes over your character, give it some subdivision and even quad topology. And then what you do is you extrude it to the backside of your character. Then you go ahead, you delete the holes in your clothing. Then you select all the edges in the middle and delete only faces. Now when you click on sewing, what it's going to do is try and connect these two faces across the edges that you've left in the middle. And with the shrinking factor, that'll determine how strongly it snaps down and shrinks together. Now, there are a lot of add-ons out there that can make this process easier, and there's also a lot of great videos out there. This is the most basics of applying clothing to your characters, but there's a lot of techniques and cool things out there for designing fashion in Blender. Next up, let's talk about collision settings. So we have object collisions and self collisions. By default, self collisions is off. Objects collisions will be the settings that determine how your cloth collides with other objects and interacts, and self collisions will determine how much it collides with itself. Now up here, we have quality settings again, just like at the top with the quality steps, and the collision quality operates dependently. This goes all the way up to 20, but I've actually found the higher the number, it will start to act a bit funky. So I recommend keeping it around 8 or lower. So first up under collisions is the distance. This determines how close or far away it'll be from the object. In general, you want this to be as low as you can as long as it's not causing any clipping issues. So by default here, I have it set down to 0.001. However, if I turn this all the way up to 1 here, you can see that when it collides, it will collide an entire meter away from that object. So there's not many times when you want to set this anything besides the default, only if you see your object clipping through. Now, impulse clamping here is if when your object is colliding with another object, you notice that it starts to create jitter, you can turn this up and try and clamp some of that jitter. Below that, you can set your vertex group if you want only certain parts of your mesh to be able to collide with objects. And the below that is the collision collection. And this just allows you to set a group of objects to collide with in a collection up here. Now below that is self-collision. And here you can see an example of self-collision on and off. Below that, we have examples of friction, distance, and impulse clamping and vertex group. Most of those are the same, except with the new one, which is friction. Now, by default, the self-friction of 5 works, but you can turn friction up if you want material to almost grate against itself and stop faster, or you can set it to something 0 if you want it to be super smooth like silk. Now, I want to point out that on the object collisions, you have a lot of these same options. So you'll see that there are 2 sections when you have a collision physics on an object. There's particle and soft body and cloth. You can go ahead here and twirl up the particle because you're just focusing on the cloth. Here we have a damping value, which acts as the damping does on the cloth itself, just kind of smoothing out and deafening some of the movement there. For the thickness, outer and inner here is the collision distance. They just have different names here. And then again, we have a friction setting. Now, you can also turn on if it is single-sided or double-sided. So if you're working with a container, you may want to turn off single-sided. For example, like I have here with the balloons blowing up inside of the box. Now, we're almost done here. We're going to talk about these property weights and field weights. So property weights, you basically just set your vertex groups, and then you can set things like where the structure occurs, where shear occurs, and this just affects everything up above it. What this is useful for is that if you have a character and you only want part of the cloth to animate, you can go ahead and set those vertex groups here. Now in the last section down here, we have what are field weights, which allows us to individually control how our cloth are affected by certain fields. And if you don't know, you can add force fields into Blender by hitting Shift A, coming down here to force field, and picking different ones. So here I have added a wind field, and you have to set the strength kind of high for it to work. And if I go ahead and play my flag animation here, you can see that now I have my flag blowing here in the wind. Or if we go back to the character animation I've been showing with the scarf, I actually have 2 wind force fields in this scene here. Now, if you have a lot of complex fields in your scene, you may want to turn some of these off for your cloth. But most often what I see people use is the gravity option, just to turn off gravity so they can do things like balloons or shrink wraps without the object just falling through the scene. Now that summarizes everything I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to recommend you some other tutorials. First of all, Ducky has a really great shrink wrap tutorial where he shows how to shrink wrap any object in Blender, and he goes in depth on how to do that. And then I also really like this tutorial that I watched which really breaks down the whole process of creating clothing for characters in much more detail. So I'll go ahead and link to both those videos in the description below.